focus on General Motors doing incredibly well, had its earnings hitting new highs. Teague Egan's with us, founder, CEO at EnergyX. Thank you for being here. Look, I mean, this name has been a winner. Some of your thoughts on what's driving a name like this?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nicole. Look, General Motors is a blue chip stock that is all in on the energy transition. I mean, you look at what Tesla has done for the industry, and they're all electric. General Motors is moving that way. And I think that with things like the GM Hummer and EV Silverado and what they're putting behind automation with Cruise, it's a can't miss right now.
I see. Okay, so GE, you feel like they're doing it right. They're certainly putting a lot behind EV. How would you sort of quantify EV demand? It seems like it's been choppy. You know, everybody who wanted an EV probably got one right away, and then you have this sort of group that's not sure if they want it.
Yeah, so first it's GM, not GE. But
I'm
you know,
sorry. Yes.
the demand for electric vehicles, look, in any industry, nothing is always straight up and to the right. There's ebbs and flows, and you know, right now there might be a small dip in EVs, but generally speaking, over the long term, the transition is happening, like undeniably happening. The floodgates have opened, and it takes some time for these things to happen, though. Like, there needs to be a huge supply chain switch, which is what EnergyX is working on. The lithium that goes into the batteries, that goes into the electric vehicles, that doesn't happen overnight. The increase in demand of lithium has gone from a few 100,000 tons to a few million tons per year. And in order to have a full electric vehicle transition, all those supply chains need to evolve and the costs need to come down. And ultimately, that will create an affordable EV for your average purchaser. And generally speaking, electric vehicles are much better cars than internal combustion engines. They're faster, they have better pickup, they have lower maintenance. All these things, you don't have to pay for gas, obviously. All these things make it a better car.
Tell me about the lithium part of this. I mean, you talk about the demand and the exponential growth that you're seeing there. Over there at EnergyX, you said you're working on this. How so? What's some of the progress?
Yeah, so to put lithium into perspective, it takes about 10,000 iPhone batteries to make one electric vehicle battery. So if you want to build a million electric vehicles, that's 10 billion iPhones worth of lithium. Now, that lithium is out there. There's big deposits, but we've never needed that much lithium. So we've never really focused on how do we produce larger volumes of lithium. That's what EnergyX is working on. We've developed technology that extracts lithium at a 300% more efficient rate than the existing methods. And there's just huge oncoming demand because of the electric vehicle revolution.
So when you think about the other names, I mean, we've certainly seen General Motors moving towards this route. I know there was a push for hybrids for a bit by a committee who thought that that might be a good transition point for folks. But some of the other names, some names in order that you think are making progress, that see growth and potential. General Motors and...
Yeah, obviously Tesla is leading the way. And they had an amazing event where they really focused on their automation. Their robo-taxi, their Robovin, as they call it. Ford is obviously kind of right there with General Motors. You know, I think there's improvements that General Motors could make. I'm not sure if it's the right move to push their legacy brands as opposed to maybe make new electric vehicle brands or specific cars. Obviously, China actually has over 50% EV penetration already. So 50% of all the new cars that are being sold in China each year are electric vehicles. And that just goes to the point that you made earlier about maybe a short dip. That's really not happening globally. Rivian is another one that I really like. They make excellent trucks that are a little bit more off-road, rugged. So, the transition is happening, and it's happening all at once.
And when we talk about the competition and tariffs and battle between those Chinese makers and U.S. makers, right? Because you have Ford, Tesla's here at home, but also abroad. But then you have, BYD and XPeng and NIO. Are there room for all those names? I think there's Lucid and Polestar and others.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that the trend is clear, right? You just named like 5 really good ones. Lucid is a great one. Polestar is a great one. Maybe there's not room for all of them. And this is a challenge for the legacy automakers in Ford and GM. How do we stay ahead of the curve and not become, a dinosaur of sorts? But I think that in terms of the Chinese versus the US is doing everything that it needs to do. They're literally putting, the tens of billions of dollars of subsidies that are required for such a transition into the infrastructure in the US, into the whole supply chain, into lithium companies, into battery companies, into battery recycling companies, into, I think, the $7,500 subsidy that the purchaser, the consumer gets if you purchase an electric vehicle. Those are things that China had already done. Basically, the whole Chinese economy is subsidized by the government. And the fact that the US is now matching that is really important to have this kind of whole electric vehicle transition grow domestically.
Thank you so much. Teague Egan, founder, CEO, EnergyX, a great conversation we really appreciate. Thanks for being on with us today.
Thanks, Nicole. Thanks for having me.